I'm not such an eloquent public speaker, and this is kind of my first time doing stuff like this, so I hope you'll bear with me. First, this no living person thing, that I don't know what kind of argument that is that created the system. The system's actually been modified gradually over the years, and so that's not much of a valid argument. Also, the polls show it's closer, or the polls of 75% support, that's kind of a push-poll. The polls that I've heard people talk about show that it's much closer if you actually tell them about the specifics of the measure. So the argument that it's wildly popular is fallacious. Mainly, Measure 65 is a huge and complicated gutting of our current system that has the effect of undemocratically destroying third parties, allowing manipulation through ringer candidates by being harder to get a majority of the vote, limiting options in the general election, increasing the cost of elections, and relegating endorsements back to back rooms by repealing public-funded party nominations. Oregonians need more choices by using a spoiler-free counting method, such as the Green Party advocates instant runoff voting, and not fewer choices in spoiler-rich elections caused by encoding our two-party system into law with a top-two-only preliminary system. Measure 65 limits voter choice in the general election, period, regardless of party, forcing voters to vote for the lesser of two evils that should never be enshrined in our voting system. In a Ballot Access News study by editor Richard Winger, only once out of 1,400 races was there an independent candidate promoted to the general election. More recently, in Washington State, where they haven't learned how to manipulate it yet, of the 5 non-major party candidates promoted to the general election, they were all in races with only 2 candidates already in the primary, and each minor party candidate would have lost if the Democrats ran 2 candidates to keep third parties out. It shouldn't be up to the whim of the major parties to keep third parties out of normally non-competitive elections if they so desire. In Washington, the amount of non-major party participation in the general election went from 27 races in 2004 to just 5 in 2008. Under Measure 65, primary elections would become a game of ringers, with political consultants recruiting candidates just to split the votes of other parties. Republican consultants could recruit people to register and file as Democratic candidates, splitting the Democratic vote. Democrats could recruit phony Republicans. Both of them could recruit phony independents and phony libertarians, further increasing the party identity theft. It puts all candidates together with no majority requirement. That's crucial, exacerbating spoiler issues, which we already have in our general elections. We should mandate majority voting. Measure 65 also makes campaigns longer and thus more expensive, as more campaigning would have to be done in the primary phase since it's effectively 2 general elections. And it's not an open primary, which is when you get to pick your party ballot when you show up at the polls. 65 is a jungle or Louisiana-style system. Measure 65 will move political endorsements to a much smaller set of party insiders without state funding of major party nominations. Let's fund all party primaries and also have a primary for non-affiliated voters instead of this, where you could have approval voting. The party primaries were a progressive measure where the public stepped in to move party endorsements from the back rooms to every voter for this very reason. Measure 65 would also destroy third parties by eliminating most third parties' ability to get to the general election ballot, where they normally get 1% statewide, to maintain ballot access. After one election cycle, they, including my party, wouldn't even be able to endorse. Every minor party other than the 2 are opposed. The 2 neutral parties are the Working Families Party and the Independent Party, and the people supporting that generally want to pick between one of the 2 major parties that already exists and throw their weight behind one of them. It's not true alternative politics. Measure 65 also kind of supports a centrist candidate where they differ only minutely on wedge issues from poll issues. Partisan bickering on a narrow range of debate will continue. The centrists should instead create their own Republicratic Party rather than effectively banning third parties they disagree with and violating their freedom to associate of the 2 parties they more closely align. The irony is that due to low turnout of primary elections and the massive candidates that would appear in these elections, the centrists will end up worse off. Usually in a top 2 system, many centrist candidates would join the race, splitting their vote, lowering the threshold for less numerous, more radical candidates with a vocal core of support to be promoted. This was proven in France with Chirac and Le Pen, Louisiana with David Duke, former KKK leader, twice, and in Peru with the Flores Humala Garcia election, for other places where they have top 2. 65 also does not increase voter turnout. The Portland City Club just had a report where they said it wouldn't lead to increased turnout. And in fact, if you look at the recent Washington one, there was a 3% drop when you look at the previous presidential election. We have one of the highest voter turnouts in the country. Why would we interfere with that? Partisanship also isn't a real problem in Oregon. The sources of partisanship are invariably from big money influencing our elections. Sizemore and Mannix campaigns, are funded by big money, which is now primarily out-of-state money. A constant cry against Republicans is heard. Is Rick Dancer partisan? Is John Hagan partisan? The Hagan case is where a centrist Republican gets the nomination, but he switched to the Independent Party. He would be on the ballot anyways, even if the Republicans didn't nominate him. Under top two, he may not even appear if the Republicans ran somebody against him. Is Kroger partisan, despite winning both of the nominations? How about Alley? Is he a raving partisan? Westland? Who are the partisan ideologues that are being elected under our system? It's just not a problem. And Measure 65 doesn't solve the primary right to vote problem. All Oregonians have the right to vote in party processes, including primaries by state law. However, non-affiliated voters have a difficult time getting on the ballot due to House Bill 2614 after the 2004 Nader fiasco in Oregon. To fix that is very simple. Repeal that law or reduce requirements for independents to match the percentage of their own kind rather than all voters to get on the ballot. Alternatively, we can have a non-affiliated primary election using approval voting, and anybody with a majority approval of non-affiliated voters moves on to the general election. Oregon's growing non-affiliated voters are sick of both parties. They don't want to be stuck with two candidates who are halfway between two types of corruption. Voter apathy demands more choices, not fewer. Thanks.